This is officially the 8th event on the Christ Leadership Series offered by the Institute for Next Level Leadership. Thank you again and again for the privilege of your presence today with us. We only have 2 more of these events. The Christ Leadership Series is going to end on July 7th. So our next few sessions are going to be very exciting. I'm Inely Cesna, the CEO and founder of the Institute for Next Level Leadership.
And I'm Mike Murphy, the co-founder of the Next Level Leadership Institute, for the Institute for Next Level Leadership. Together we are I Am. Inely.
Mike.
Mike. You know, the initials, Inely and Mike.
And I'm going to share our famous presentation now with John's picture.
Yeah, we're also a destination in Thailand. Thank you, John. We love this picture so much. We use it all the time.
I thought it was just kind of a funny little joke. I'm glad you guys find it so valuable. Good deal.
We love it.
It's hysterical. I mean, I knew we were legends in our own minds, but I didn't realize we'd gone all the way to Thailand. As we have said many times before.
Someday we'll be all over the world.
Yeah, well, again.
Yes.
We've been there once. You know, we didn't get a T-shirt though. That's why we're going to do this again.
Right.
You know, as we've said so many times before, the Institute's mission is to empower from within. The Institute for Next Level Leadership is about awakening the leader within you, empowering you as you empower others. For some reason, beyond my understanding, the founding fathers understood this when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. And I'm going to summarize what they said, but it was as simple as, by virtue of your creation, you are endowed with certain unalienable rights. And among them are, not all of them, but among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we've added leadership as well. We firmly believe that everyone within them resides a leader. And our goal is to remember, you into the leader that you already are. And the collateral benefit is that an empowered leader leads himself from within. And if you can lead yourself from within, you can lead anyone. And the result is the ability to empower others to do the same. And there really is no threat in that. Because when that leader is not present, the influence and the energy and the power of that empowered leadership keeps going. Together, Inely and I are inspired by the concept of yin and yang. It comes from Taoism, a religion born in China, and represents a concept of dualism that describes how seemingly impossible contrary forces may actually be complementary. And while this slide is up, I just want to point out.
I think you meant seemingly opposite or contrary.
Contrary.
Yeah, you said impossible, seemingly opposite and contrary.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yes, paying attention to what you're saying.
Yeah. And while this slide's up, I just want to point something out. You notice 2 things. There's a black and a white, and they form together. The black has a white dot, the white has a black dot. The black is the female energy, the white is the male energy. And yet each one has the other's energy within. I mean, I just love this. Okay, but what I just said is worth repeating. The next level leader is empowered from within and naturally empowers others as well. One of the ways that the next level leader is empowered from within is by understanding and recognizing how and when to stabilize such things as chaos, ambiguity, diversity, and change, to find the North Star, and in service, help others do the same. This is a journey that unfolds as they go. It unfolds as you go, creating the way forward and, more importantly, empowering others.
Well, our intention for the Institute for Next Level Leadership is to empower leaders who are willing to lead with love from a place of inner empowerment, capable of sustaining harmony within themselves and out in the world. You may ask, what is inner empowerment? Inner empowerment means inner stabilization in the midst of change, chaos, diversity, and ambiguity. It means the ability to use these conditions as catalysts for a higher level of engagement, cooperation, and success. We are very, very grateful and honored for the privilege of having you with us tonight uh, during the Christ Leadership Series. If you would like to share in this intention, please let us know so we can schedule a time to talk about how you can join us for the next mastermind program that starts in October. Space is limited because we can only accept a small number of participants because the program is highly customized with individual coaching for each participant, really tailoring all the teachings through what's happening in your life, what's happening in your business, to your world. So please don't hesitate.
Programs. These are the three offerings we have going right now. Obviously, this one, and thank you again for being here with us. It occurs every Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if you're interested in hearing a lesson in Portuguese, it also occurs Monday Pacific time at 1 p.m. And I have really enjoyed those classes. Next Level Leadership Mastermind Program, Inely just mentioned, and that will start
October through May.
October through May.
Yeah.
And then there's the
Leading the Leader.
Leading the Leader.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
On our screen, it's a little block. And this is for those who have completed the mastermind program and want to actually take this work into their work. They will actually participate in the class again. They were all members of the first one. It was 6 months. We were content rich, which is why we took it to 8 months. And the emphasis with them, especially in the coaching program, will be how to integrate and coordinate, these concepts within their own work and their own employment.
A really quick review on what we've seen so far. In our first event, we talked about neutral observation in the now, in the moment. The key concept here is neutrality through observation of the present moment without being too attached to the past or to the future. In a crisis or in life in general, when we look at the past, we may enter into nostalgia because the normality as we knew it may no longer exist. This makes us feel threatened, afraid, or cautious, and may awaken our instincts. The instincts see life from outside in, looking at the outside world as the source of who we are, how we fit in it, and how we survive in it, and how we protect ourselves from it. The instincts tend to place us as victims of the outside world. So in a crisis, it triggers our fight and flight mechanism to seek our protection, our security, and our survival. And it can also blame the outside world for our upsets, and so nest feelings of pride and anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame, and so on. And this may also happen when we look into the future and we don't know what's coming next. We may feel lost and hopeless. However, when we pause, breathe, and look at the present moment, knowing that with each moment, with each here and now, we are participating in the creation of the future that is yet to come, then we assess our intuition. The intuition sees life from inside out, looking inside ourselves at our innate virtues as the source of who we are and what we have to manifest in the world. The intuition tends to position us as co-creators of this world. So during a crisis, it triggers our mechanism of flying with our creativity and inventiveness, seeking innovative solutions for what lies ahead. And in doing so, the intuition masks feelings of willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, and so on. Now, the instinct and the intuition are very powerful inner forces that can often pull us to opposite sides, creating a sort of a tug of war within us. Neutral observation in the here and now is the tool that helps us identify this inner dynamics amongst seemingly opposite forces, so that we can align and stabilize them towards greater success and the greater good. As we mentioned before, with the concept of yin and yang, the teachings of the Institute for Next Level Leadership are designed to guide you towards the stabilization of these seemingly opposing inner forces, so that they complement each other and they are aligned towards the greater good and your highest level of success. In our second event, we talked about tiny actions or baby steps. The way we stabilize opposing inner forces is little by little, step by step. The cumulative impact of our tiny actions brings forward significant results that are sustainable over time. And then comes change. Change disrupts our sense of normalcy. It creates polarization, as we've seen in the world now with all kinds of racism and Black Lives Matter and everything that is going on. It destroys neutrality, and it calls us into the process of adaptation. We usually dislike change that are sudden, unexpected, and unknown, because we can lose track of what we are adapting to, and we can become blind to what the environment is mirroring back to us as reflections of our own perceptions. So in event 3, we learned the success tool of adaptation to change and how to cooperate with the process so that it becomes a leverage for our growth. One way that we can cooperate with change to leverage towards our growth is through trust. So in event 4, we talked about the difference between risk assessment and trust. Risk assessment being the reliance we put on people, circumstances, and things outside of us. And trust being the reliance we put on a bigger and better quality inside us, which results in a dramatic shift from I can't to I think I can to I know I can. When we trust this inner and better quality, we stop relying on others to act as we expect them to, and instead we choose to trust the guidance of our own inner quality to provide us with a sense of direction in the outside world. Now, the fact is that trust is easier said than done, because trust requires sacrifice. Sacrifice creates the pathway through which trust can come through and fill in the gaps. Through sacrifice, we learn how and when to step aside and let go of what we think it should be, to open space for what's meant to be. Sacrifice means letting go of something so that we can receive something else far greater. The result of sacrifice is a profound sense of grace and the palpable knowing of a quality inside far better and greater than ourselves, a quality of something being done through us. Now, with trust and sacrifice comes stabilization. Stabilization is the end of the inner tug of war, the cessation of againstness inside, the coming together of what once was opposing forces in alignment, one strengthening and complementing the other. Stabilization, above all, is an act of service to ourselves because it allows us to know our contribution to the whole and be fulfilled in it. As we are fulfilled by the contribution we bring into the whole, we serve ourselves at the same time we are serving others. And that brings forward collaboration. Collaboration is the success tool that we saw last week. Through collaboration, we are capable of achieving further and greater things and ensure that stability does not become a liability by encouraging continuous improvement. In business, collaboration requires a shared vision, it requires shared values, and a shared definition of success. Personally, it takes clarity as to our contribution to the whole, as well as how our personal mission and values are in harmony with the vision and values of the collective group. Collaboration also implies diversification, as each one of us brings a different contribution to the collaborative effort in service to the greatest good. Collaboration, after all, is the consciousness of service in action. Consciousness of service in action, which starts by serving ourselves through stabilization and then serving others. Now, the danger with collaboration is that we may begin to over-identify with the collective group and forget our own identity. In our mastermind programs, we call this phenomenon leadership. Pardon my vocabulary, leadership. Leadership is this over-identification with the group, where we segregate and separate the group as a form of protection. In doing so, we sabotage the collective group and ourselves, and we lose track of who we truly are in it. So this really refers to the intoxication of power, where intoxication means in toxic action. In toxic action. And the greatest historical example of this is Hitler, who exerted a highly toxic leadership under the platform of creating a superior race to save the world. So as an antidote to this very real danger, we must go back to the basics, to the conditions that brought us into collaboration in the first place, to our own inner point of stabilization. The success tool for today is one which name was very, very difficult to find. It was challenging to find one word that reflects fully what we would like to say today. So we want to ask you to grasp the energy of what we are saying here, rather than the semantics of it. The name that we chose to describe the success tool for today is simplicity. Simplicity of character is the natural result of profound thought. This was said by William Hazlitt. He was an English philosopher of the 19th century. And we love his quote. We love his quote because it expresses the kind of simplicity we are referring to here. We are talking about a simplicity that has been filtered through experience, time, and tested by life in order to become pure, clear, unpretentious, authentic, straightforward, efficient, and very down to earth, much like water. Before we talk further about this, we would like to show you a video that shows the sustaining power of something as simple, clear, and uncomplicated as water. So here's the video. There you go. So what we love most about this video, what attracted us to this video for today, is that the water is the sculpture of Earth when forming the Grand Canyon. And yet, when we see pictures of the Grand Canyon, like the ones that was in the end of the movie and are on the screen right now, we don't even see the water. The water is completely unassuming of its immense power. It simply goes on with its tiny actions day after day until it has made a sculpture as majestic as the Grand Canyon. If you have ever visited the Grand Canyon, you may have experienced, like I did, how minuscule and infinitely small our bodies are in comparison. The water is simple, transparent, common, ordinary, unassuming, unpretentious. Yet, it's vital for life. It makes up for about an average of 60% of the human body and 70% of the Earth's surface. The water infiltrates all kinds of surface and makes its mark on it. Bruce Lee, who is a philosopher and a legend, when asked about his incredible skills in martial arts, this is what he said.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. Put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or creep or drip or crash. Be water, my friend.
Okay, so here we are. Stop sharing so we can have we can talk more about water, because we think there is a lot to be learned from water in terms of next level leadership. Next level leadership is demonstrated by consistent, persistent, and integrative actions that bring forward significant results, capable of enduring long after the leader's absence. It's the ability of doing without losing sight of the being. Next level leadership is about simplicity of thoughts, actions, and words. It's about efficiency. Next level leadership is efficient because it doesn't waste resources with appearances, facade, and form. It's clear, transparent, and singular, as it relies on the formulas that it's inside of us, in integration with the form that is on the outside world. So some of the greatest examples I have seen of the power of simplicity in leadership have been in the private multi-billion-dollar corporation that I worked for. The owners and their family were extremely simple, down to earth, and unpretentious. They taught me that being in the top list of the richest people in the world did not stop them from being human, from being simple, being authentic, transparent, and above all, humble. One of the company's 5 principles is efficiency, which was understood as waste nothing and use resources to the fullest. Another incredible leader who I admire greatly for incorporating these qualities, the quality of simplicity, is Mike Murphy here. Mike's leadership within the company was one of depth and efficiency of thoughts, actions, and words. He never talked much. However, when he did talk, his words were profoundly meaningful. He would talk to the owners and the presidents, as well as the receptionist and the factory workers, with the same candor. And although he doesn't like me saying this, he was a true legend within the corporation. I heard myself many stories about him being told by associates of all levels of the corporate ladder in many different countries and cultures. So, to exemplify how this applies to life, I asked Mike to talk to you today a little bit about his ways of living simplicity within the corporate environment. There you go, Mike. Tell us your magic.
You have no idea how much I dislike that. Except I always wish my mom was alive. She used to call me every mother's hope. So I picked a couple of stories I wanted to share with you. They're both true. I'll skip some of the details, but if you ever want to hear the whole thing, just feel free to ask. One was back in the mid '70s. The company that and I worked for, they bought a pet food company in Vernon, California. And we're the largest pet food manufacturer in the world, and we had very little business in the US. And after a pretty significant analysis, it was a lot easier to buy one than it was to start from scratch, which is the way we did most of them. So we bought this company, and the only thing we had in common was an interest in pet food. The company was unionized, and they had a very different culture. 90% of the workforce didn't speak English, and the reason they sent me out there is I was working in HR at the time, and I was fluent in Spanish. I was educated in Mexico, as some of you know. And so I went out there, and it was fascinating. The first part of my job was to break up knife fights in the meat plant. And it reminded me of my old neighborhood in New York. Um, so I was no stranger to violence, but it wasn't exactly what I expected to do. The other thing that I found fascinating is one day I was out in the factory and everybody left their jobs and ran for the street. I mean, literally, they evacuated. And I looked around and said, "What the hell is going on here?" And one of the supervisors says, "Well, the Immigration and Nationalization Service is here, and they're afraid they're going to get deported back to the country they came from." So they just ran out. So I'll tell you, I don't know about you, but that's really no way to run a business or a construction company or a pet food company. So I did a couple of things. I had a quick phone call with my bosses explaining what I found out here, and they said, "What are you going to do?" And I explained it to them, and they said, "Go ahead, go." I had some very close friends in the graduate school at USC, and so I asked them if they could put me in touch with someone that would start English as a second language program. And they did, and they actually had a program. They customized it for us, and I started this program to teach everyone in the factory English. Next thing I did was I met with a law firm in downtown LA, fairly large law firm, and asked them if how can I get some kind of veil of security around that factory and start a process to integrate these people into the U.S. You know, apply for green cards, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They put together. It was a pretty bold plan, but it was very very simple. It was very simple. This trust me, what we were doing here was not brain surgery, and there's a lot of elegance in simplicity. And so I got that started. I shut down the factory. I called everybody in, all four shifts, put them all in a room, and explained to them fairly simply, you know, what I was about to do. And I wasn't. And I said, I'm not doing this because I'm a nice person. I'm doing this is because this is the way that we're going to be able to survive together. You know, and I said, cuando estamos en México, hablamos español. When we're in Mexico, we speak Spanish. Y cuando está aquí en los Estados Unidos, es muy, muy importante. I just switched to Portuguese for some of our Portuguese things. Some of our Portuguese people. It's very important that you learn the language because you don't just learn the language. You learn the elegance and simplicity, this side of the culture. And so we started the program. The program was very successful. I really didn't understand the depth of the spiritual side of what I was doing. People, I would explain, I did a lot of the right things for the wrong reasons. That was my own irrational belief. The wrong reason was, you know, I wanted to make money and make the company successful. The other example that I wanted to mention to you briefly was cocoa farmers in Brazil. First time I went to Brazil was, I think, 1972. And we had a work stoppage at a cocoa farm where we did a lot of research up in Ilhéus in northern Brazil. And they asked me to go down there. I said, "Well, I don't speak Portuguese." They said, "You speak Spanish. It's the same thing." I said, "Well, no, it's not the same thing. Just go down there and fix it." So I went down there, and it didn't take me long to figure out what the problem was. Everyone was working in the cocoa fields barefoot. There's some snakes around, and it was hot, and not very comfortable. And so I went down to the local village, and it wasn't easy, but I found about, it was 37, 38 pairs of boots. I threw them in the back of the truck that I took down there from the farm and handed out everybody boots. I think I could have gotten elected mayor of the local town after boots. It was just a simple act. It's just absolutely the right thing to do. I also explained to them that in Australia there's so many gnats and bugs and flies. Some of the flies are, huge. That they take straw hats and they put thread through it, and they put a cork at the end, so the corks are constantly swinging in front of their face, and it keeps all the bugs out of their face. If you've never been to Australia, and you go out in the outback, you'll see a lot of these ants. Last one, Quickie, another cocoa farm I was visiting that were customers of ours. We bought a lot of cocoa from them, and there were two brothers that ran the farm. And the first time I went down there, I was talking to them, and one had a right boot on, and one had a left boot on. So I looked at this, and I said, "These are fascinating. What's with the boots?" I said, "Well, we can only afford one pair of boots, so this week I wear the right boot, and my brother wears the left boot, and next week we switch, and I'll wear the left boot, and he'll wear the right boot." So, of course, when I was in town, I bought a couple of pairs of boots, and got everything moved forward and fun. But the third thing I probably ought to mention, it was obvious to me whether when I was working in the cocoa fields, whether it was in Brazil or Ecuador or Papua New Guinea or Cote d'Ivoire in Africa, Malaysia, that nothing was going to change if you didn't educate the children. Nothing. It was just going to be generational ignorance moving through society. And so the company, we actually built a school on the cocoa farm, the first one I told you about, to educate everybody's kids that worked there. And then the workers asked if they could keep the school open after the workday so they could go to school. And I said, sure. And over time, I negotiated a deal in cooperation with the World Bank to build schools around the world in these cocoa fields. And the best part of that, which is I think one of the reasons it took so long, is I asked them to fund the money through me and not through the government, because too much of it had disappeared, when it went through the government, especially in Africa. And so it worked, and we built a lot of schools, a lot of kids got educated. It wasn't complicated. It was incredibly simple. It was elegant, and it was definitely for the highest good.
Yeah, so thank you, Mike. I love Mike's experience on this because I think it reflects back to us that sometimes leadership is completely out of the scope of what you may think leaders do. And they really have to go back to the basics. What is the basic, the foundation? Give them boots or give them a hat or, give them education and citizenship so that they can come to work. And that also applies to our leadership internally, personally. Sometimes we have to come back again to where inside of us it all starts, where inside of us is the source of it all. So thank you. Thank you, Mike. I think this is a great real life, example of the application of this success tool. So now we have an inspirational piece for today. It's a song. It's a Quaker song written by Joseph Brackett entitled "Simple Gifts." And we ask that you receive the poetry of this lyric as a meditation, or if you prefer, you can move, stretch, relax, or simply enjoy the video. The video does have the lyrics for you. I know, I'm going to it. Here we go.
Tis the gift to be simple, tis the gift to be free, tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, to by turning we come round. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, to by turning we come round.
There we go. We are going to take a 2-minute practical exercise time now. You can meditate, reflect, or journal. If you're inspired to journal on the inquiries on the screen, that can be a great idea. And they are, what person do you admire who embodies simplicity? And what does it mean to you to embody simplicity? So thank you, everyone. Light, I hope to see you next Tuesday. Wish you a blessed week.
Yeah, thank you so much.